If you're confirmed, you will attempt to stay politically neutral in your decision-making. Is that fair to say?
Yes, Senator.
Fair characterization of your views, I should say.
Yes, yes.
So I was troubled, I have to say, by this article that you wrote that Senator Portman asked you about a minute ago, published by the American Political Science Association. I have it here, Anti-Intellectualism in the Modern Presidency, Republican Populism, published in June of 2007. Do you consider this piece to be nonpartisan?
Thank you, Senator, for that question. I consider it to be an academic article, publication of 16, 17 years ago, a scholarly piece.
Yeah, let's dig into it a little bit. You write in your paper that to combat allegations of elitism, recent Republican presidents have adopted anti-intellectualism. Mm-hmm. How would you define anti-intellectualism?
Thank you, Senator, for that question. The ability to speak in very plain, common sense terms to Americans.
So you say recent Republican presidents, but your case studies are Dwight Eisenhower and Ronald Reagan, mm-hmm. and then coming up, I think, to George W. Bush. Mm-hmm. So what's the point here? I mean, you say at one point Republicans tend to exhibit anti-intellectual qualities. Democrats, on the other hand, coalesce on the intellectual tail of the continuum. So is the point that Republicans are stupid and Democrats are intellectual?
Yes, thank you, Senator, for that question. Absolutely not. The point of the article is that the presidents that I featured in it have a rhetorical connection with the American people.
A rhetorical connection that you say is anti-intellectual, and you feature every two-term Republican president, going back to Dwight Eisenhower.
Yes, Senator, I think it's a piece on rhetoric, and it is really looking at how these presidents have been successful rhetorically in their arguments.
Interesting. It's a piece on rhetoric, but you attribute part of the anti-intellectualism of the Republican Party to, in your words, the rise of the religious right. Mm-hmm. Tell me about that. Is it because those voters are stupid?
Thank you, Senator, for that question. Absolutely not. And if I am confirmed as Archivist of the United States, I look forward to welcoming all Americans to the National Archives.
So do you think that people who voted for Donald Trump are anti-intellectual?
Thank you, Senator. I would not make any judgment on the people who voted for President Trump or any other president.
So you don't think the people who voted for Dwight Eisenhower or Ronald Reagan or George W. Bush, they weren't anti-intellectual? The anti-intellectual rhetoric just appealed to them because what? What's your theory?
Thank you, Senator, for that question. As I said, presidents are able to speak in common sense, plain terms to Americans that they understand.
So you characterize President Reagan as having, quote, less than impressive intellectual capacities. You said President Eisenhower and Bush were decidedly intellectual. You said Reagan engaged in intellectual posturing. Let's just start with the first one, less than impressive intellectual capacities. So in other words, it's dumb.
Thank you, Senator. Absolutely not. That was a perception, and it was cited.
I'm sorry, it's a perception by whom? By you? You wrote about it.
No, Senator. That was, and as I said, in the article, that is a perception, but actually in the article, because...
You say Reagan's less than...
Senator Josh Hawley confronted President Biden's nominee for U.S. Archivist, Dr. Colleen Shogan, accusing her of holding deep-seated partisan biases against Republicans. The flashpoint? A 2007 article titled Anti-Intellectualism in the Modern Presidency. Explosive Senate Showdown. Today we break down the high-stakes hearing, what was said, what it really means, and why it matters more than ever. Colleen Shogan, an experienced academic and public servant, has been nominated to serve as the 11th Archivist of the United States. With a career spanning institutions like the Library of Congress and the White House Historical Association, her resume suggests a long record of nonpartisan service, but her past writings are now under scrutiny and Senator Hawley is demanding answers. Hawley wasted no time. From the start, he hammered Shogan on whether she could truly remain politically neutral in the role of archivist, especially given the increasing perception that federal agencies are being used as political tools.
You wrote an article saying basically that Republican voters are stupid.
It was less a question and more an accusation. Hawley charged that Shogan's language painted Republican presidents and voters as intellectually inferior. Shogan pushed back firmly, defending her academic work as scholarly analysis, not partisan attack. So what exactly was in the article? Written in 2007, the piece examined how Republican presidents from Eisenhower to George W. Bush used plain-spoken language to connect with the public. Shogun labeled this rhetorical style anti-intellectualism, a term that, to Hawley, carried heavy implication. Shogun maintained that the work was a study in communication style, not ideology. But critics, including Hawley, weren't buying it, especially when the article linked the rise of anti-intellectualism with the emergence of the religious right.
A perception, but actually in the article, because...
You say Reagan's less than impressive intellectual capacities have been widely discussed. That's presented as a factual statement. You don't even cite for it. This is on page 298. I have your article. Don't dissemble in front of me. So Reagan's less than impressive intellectual capacities have been widely discussed. You're not saying that he had less than... That's not your view?
Thank you, Senator. It is not my view.
Why did you write it?
Thank you, Senator. That is not my view. My view was focused on his rhetorical capability.
That's not what your sentence says. Listen, you wrote an article saying basically that Republican voters are stupid, that Republican presidents deliberately appeal to anti-intellectualism. You rolled it all up in this thing called Republican populism, yet you're trying to present yourself here as a nonpartisan. In fact, you're an extreme partisan, and your record shows that. You're someone who has denigrated Republican presidents, every two-term Republican president, I hope I'm not leaving anybody out, that has, since the Second World War, and their voters in this lengthy article. I mean, I just don't understand. If you wrote it, why won't you stand behind it?
Thank you, Senator. I will stand by my long experience for over 15 years of nonpartisan service.
You know, this is not just a theoretical set of questions, because as you know, we have seen what happens when you have political activists in the position that you are up for confirmation for. And we are living through that as a nation right now. We are living through the weaponization, the political weaponization of the National Archives, the political weaponization of the Department of Justice, the political weaponization of the FBI, such that half of the people of this country cannot trust those institutions. We're living with a president who calls half the voters of this country semi-fascist.
Trust institutions they once believed in. The role of archivist isn't just administrative, it's symbolic. And in Hawley's view, Shogun's past writings cast serious doubt on her ability to serve all Americans impartially. The hearing ended with no clear resolution, but a message was sent. In today's hyperpartisan climate, every word, even those written nearly 2 decades ago, can come back with full political force. Was this a necessary vetting of a key federal nominee, or a partisan ambush? Thanks for watching. Stay informed, stay critical, and we'll see you in the next one.